about who you were 10 years ago. Not the broad strokes, the specifics. What you wanted your life to look like, who you expected to still be speaking to, what you were certain you'd never do, and what you were certain you'd always want. Most people, doing that honestly, find a stranger. Recognizable, but foreign. You can see the distance clearly. Now do it forwards, 10 years from today. Same detail. And notice what happens. You produce something that looks a lot like your life now with better numbers attached. Same values, same priorities, same person further along. That gap between how much you know you've changed and how little you expect to has been measured. It holds at every age. It is strongest in people your age. And almost every financial decision you make rests on the wrong half of it. Morgan Housel spent years as a financial journalist, watching ordinary people lose money while following advice they'd been given in good faith. In 2020, he published what he'd concluded in The Psychology of Money. Most of that book is about behavior, patience, envy, ego, the things you do to yourself. And the implied promise of a behavior book is that if you understand the mistake, you can stop making it. Chapter 14 breaks that promise. It's called You'll Change, and it's about something you cannot correct by knowing about it. You will finish this video, agree with all of it, and then go straight back to planning for a version of yourself who is not coming. That's not a failure of attention. It's the finding, and it has a number attached. 19,000 people aged 18 to 68 across 6 studies published in the journal Science in 2013. The researchers asked one half how much they'd changed in the past decade. They asked the other half how much they expected to change in the next one. Personality, values, preferences. The two answers should roughly match. A 40-year-old's memory of the last 10 years ought to predict a 30-year-old's next 10. They didn't match anywhere. At every single age, people reported enormous change behind them and predicted very little ahead. The 40-year-old easily recalls how different they were at 30, then confidently describes a 50-year-old self who looks exactly like them. The researchers called it the end of history illusion. Everyone, at every age, believes they finished becoming themselves quite recently. It is strongest in the young. The researchers didn't stop at describing the illusion. They costed it. Because people anchored to who they are right now, they systematically overpay for future opportunities to indulge their current preferences. They buy the ticket, the membership, the package, the plan at today's enthusiasm for a person who will not want it. That's the small version, the gym you joined in January, the subscription you cancel 11 months late. The large version is the same mechanism with 3 more zeros. A career optimized around work you will stop wanting to do, a flat sized for a life you will stop living, 30 years of commitment signed by someone who, by the research, has almost no idea who is going to be making the payments in year 12. Every one of those purchases was made on behalf of a stranger. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? What age do you plan to retire? What's your risk tolerance? What are your long-term goals? Every one of those questions asks you to forecast a person the evidence says you cannot forecast. And they are not idle questions. They are the inputs. Your answers become the mortgage term, the contribution rate, the fund allocation, the 30-year commitment. The industry asking them knows the answers are unreliable. It has its own churn data. It watches people abandon these plans constantly. It asks anyway because the product needs a number in the box and you are the only one available to supply it. So you invent a confident forecast about a stranger, someone files it, and it quietly becomes the foundation of the next 3 decades of your financial life. Nobody ever revisits the forecast.
2 25-year-olds. The first saves nothing. Retirement is an abstraction. His 60s belong to someone he can't picture, and money spent now goes to a person he actually knows. He is certain the future will sort itself out. The second saves punishingly, 60% of a modest income, no holidays, no evenings out, an entire decade surrendered to a retirement he has imagined in remarkable detail. He is certain the future is worth any price now. These look like opposite people. Every piece of financial advice treats them as opposite problems. They have made identical errors. Both are completely confident about who they'll be. One assumes his future self needs nothing. The other assumes his future self wants exactly what he wants today. Neither has left any room for the person who actually turns up. You cannot fix this by predicting better. That's the whole finding. So stop trying and change what you're optimizing for. Before any long commitment, 3 questions. What does leaving cost? How long until I can leave? And what am I assuming about myself that has to stay true for this to keep making sense? That third one is the important one, and almost nobody asks it. Every long commitment contains a hidden forecast about your future self. Say it out loud. This only works if I still want to live in this city. This only works if I still find this work tolerable at 38. Then the general rule. When 2 options are close, take the one that's easier to undo. The reversible option is usually slightly worse on the spreadsheet. It is reliably better in a life. There's a way to misuse all of this, and it's the most likely outcome. Reversibility is not the same as avoidance. Keeping my options open is the most respectable disguise available for refusing to decide anything, and it will cost you more than any bad commitment ever did. The person who never commits never compounds. Not money, not skill, not relationships. So the instruction isn't commit to less. It's choose more carefully which things you're willing to be wrong about. And there's a harder limit. Some of the best things available to you are irreversible by design. Children, a marriage, 20 years in a craft. You cannot build an exit clause into those, and the ones that matter most tend to be exactly the ones you can't undo. This is a tool for the ordinary commitments, not the defining ones. Here is where this book contradicts itself, and it's worth saying out loud. Chapter 4 is the emotional center of The Psychology of Money. Its argument is that good investing isn't about the highest returns, it's about decent returns you can sustain for the longest possible time, because time is where compounding does all its work. 10 chapters later, he tells you that you'll change more than you expect, so keep your plans flexible. Those cannot both be maximized. Compounding requires that you don't move. Flexibility is the ability to move. Every unit of one costs you a unit of the other. Housel prices the cost of rigidity in detail. He never once prices the cost of optionality. And staying liquid, staying uncommitted, staying reversible is expensive. He doesn't say so because the book would have to resolve a tension he leaves open. The honest version, choose a very small number of things you'll be locked into and be ruthlessly flexible about everything else. He never tells you how to choose them. That's the actual work, and it isn't in the book. So go back to the 10-year test. Not to answer it better, you can't, only to notice that you were about to build something permanent on top of it.